There we go. All right. We're on.
All right.
So this is great. So we're talking with Dan Kershaw from Furniture Bank. And we just had an awesome tour of Furniture Bank. And we were just talking about your background. So Dan, tell us a little bit more. We've got sort of your background on you.
Sure.
So tell us how you came to Furniture Bank, basically.
So I'm unlike most executive directors. I come with 18 years of for-profit experience working in startups and technology companies and growth divisions and the like. And while the funny story of how I came to come and run a charity is interesting in itself, I don't think it's necessarily relevant other than I had this weird opportunity to come run a charity. And when I arrived in an organization that was in a financial crisis. And it was through focusing on the social enterprise and growing it, both the intensity and the professionalism is what gave us the financial engine to sustain the charity, to actually overcome a very significant financial loss and actually bring it back to a break-even proposition.
Wow.
So I have two minds. One is in business, there are a lot of decisions and expenditures and behaviors that this sector tends to frown upon, but in the for-profit sector, you would be fired if you didn't do them. So I come from we're fortunate that in a charitable legal structure, our charitable objects define our activities and our behavior. And it clearly reads, we are meant to run businesses to alleviate and end poverty. And for the entrepreneur in me, I've got 6 or 7 businesses, which if you watch our tour, you'll notice there's lots of little businesses that are bubbling up with the intent of finding something that's sustainable and impactful at the same time.
So how are you managing that from a finance perspective, like a social finance perspective? How do those all sort of fall under, you talked about your charitable articles.
Yep.
How are you managing all that from just a business framework?
So as a business framework, I'm a big believer of the lean startup model, the whole idea of coming up with small, minimum viable products. So we do a lot of testing, a lot of experimenting. You'll see that we've got a new social enterprise started, we call Workshop Studio. We started that out small, where the financial risk to the organization was small in size. If it did fail, it would just fail, and that was that. It wouldn't risk the charity. But where we could invest, we would invest and go to the next experiment and the next experiment. We're now at a point now where we're creating items for sale, where we're using consignment channels to prove out that there is a market for this product. And the intent is in the coming years it'll become much bigger, much more employment, much more revenue. In the next year or two, we'll actually go the next step of getting an additional rental space. But everything's about using a baseball metaphor, lots of bunts and singles, and never getting hung up on doubles, triples, or home runs.
Right. So we've talked a lot about, too, in the past, this idea of, you sort of mentioned or alluded it to, this sort of anti-business sort of perspective.
Yes.
In the non-for-profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of, so talk to me a little bit about that, because I know you're sort of passionate about
yeah,
this.
there's a phrase. So I came in, there was the day I got the job, and then I said, oh my, I can't swear on this podcast. I don't know how to run a charity. I know how to run business. And then I came across this fellow named Dan Pallotta. And if you haven't watched Dan Pallotta, it's a mandatory viewing here at Furniture Bank. It is another way of looking at how charities should think about money. And if you are in the nonprofit space, you'll often hear people say mission before margin. I'm a margin before mission, because without margin, there is no mission.
Right.
Our social enterprises today fund 60% of our operating needs. My goal is to get that up to about 80%. That gives us the latitude, because when it comes to running a nonprofit it's cash is king. Cash does not come consistently in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, and then October, November, December come, and there's lots of it. I take my hat off to nonprofits who have no social enterprise, because it's to run a business, because that is what a nonprofit is. It is a business. It has a tax return. It has obligations to the Industry Canada for taxation. It just happens to operate with a social mission in mind. In the case of Furniture Bank, we know our ability to solve the problem is driven through a strong social enterprise. And we've doubled it in size in the last 3 years, and we've doubled our social impact in 3 years. And there is a direct connection between more margin, allows us to deliver more mission.
Scaling. You guys have talked about scaling.
On our way.
So how are you approaching this concept of scaling? So you've got your businesses that you're sort of, the minimum viable product option.
Yep.
How does that replicate and duplicate in a scaling model? Are you using sort of the same approach?
We are, in effect. So in our case, as all nonprofits, you have a board of volunteers who may or may not have any business experience. You may have some very good intentioned people that when you talk about scale and doubling your expenditures and the risk, you may have board members who suddenly put the brakes on. So we are going through the process of showing the board that scaling, coming up with small things is risk friendly. We're working with partners to figure out the models. How might we scale? Rather than making it a guaranteed, helping bring all of our stakeholders, our funders, our partners, and our board members along to understand that it is on mission, it is required, and it can be done in a risk-free is too strong a word, but in a risk-managed way. So we're actually this year in 2017 figuring out the models by which we will explore to expand.
So you brought up an interesting point, sort of board readiness around social enterprise. So this is it's interesting because do you see the direct correlationship to the scaling tools that you use or the accounting tools that you use and the mission? So how do you have those conversations with the board?
Board is probably where today, where when I arrived, I would spend my time elsewhere. Right now, getting the right board and the right mindset and the right skills will end up becoming fundamental for a successful social enterprise. This program, SENP, most of the people here are probably, my assessment, coming from a nonprofit, and they're thinking about adding a social enterprise. So the nature of the skills and the interests on a board in a pure nonprofit is different than those having the right business minds at the table to steward a business from seedling to growth. We've had our social enterprise since 2004. And in the last 3 years, it's most of our board are business people who want to do good versus people who want to do good who are learning what does it mean to run a business. And one of the reasons I'm interested in teaching this, in being involved in this program, is that business is learnable, and it doesn't mean you have to become dirty or colored with a bad brush. That there are ways to run business for good, as I call it.
Right. So it's interesting. One of the things that we do, like in the CPI program, and coming from a business background myself, and being the oddball in the human service sphere, was this idea that the biggest thing that I had to learn was empathy. See, I thought I knew empathy, but I just happened to be the most empathetic business person.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
As opposed to, like you say, taking the business model and teaching it to people that already understand empathy and the power that.
Yes, and you highlight something great, Nicole. I was the most empathic business person in my working career, and it's teaching my team, my staff, all the way down to whoever's moving the furniture, that being a capitalist isn't bad. It's what you do with the outcomes of that business that determine whether you're doing good in this world or not. We run a business where every day we're transacting thousands of dollars of sales, but the byproduct of that is both margin as well as the furniture and the furnishings to allow us to support people emerging from poverty. And there's no misunderstanding. Everybody's completely aware, and it's consistent with their behavior. But I find a lot of people struggle with, if I market or if I sell or if I spend money on things, that I'm not doing the mission, and it's quite contrary. The story that's most personal to me is you'll often hear this thing called the overhead ratio, which Dan Pallotta highlights as the overhead myth. And if you're not familiar with it, it's as simple as this. the expectation is you won't spend money on things that aren't directly linked to the mission. And technology, my background is technology. I arrived in this organization going, technology can let us do more. But there's this nattering out in the sector that if you spent money on technology, you would be taking away from the mission. And as a business person learning this sector, there was always a concern of mine was, well, am I being too businessy? And I'd been invited into the University of Toronto to talk about Furniture Bank social enterprise. 50 grad students at OISE, and those 50 grad students all in a room, they all like to chat and argue and debate, and we ended up getting into a conversation on just how important is furniture in poverty alleviation. How do you measure that? And I agree, measurement is important, it's part of this sector, but the class was starting to devolve into two camps. One, it was really important. Others is, it's okay, not super important. And there was a lady who happened to be sitting right in the middle of the horseshoe and who slammed her hand on the desk and declared, I was a client of Furniture Bank. And had I not received the furniture and the furnishings from Furniture Bank, I would have lost my home. And in doing that, I would have lost my daughter. No need to go into the story. I talked with her after, and I figured out when we served her, and it was because we had invested in Salesforce and because we had invested in better tools. We were big enough to take her appointment. So had we not spent money on technology, had we listened to the rhetoric of the thou shalts, that mother would have lost her daughter, and that life, or those lives, would have been forever changed. So it speaks to me. We're in the process right now of investing another $100,000 on Salesforce to allow us to be able to support more communities across Canada who want to run furniture banks. So I challenged all nonprofits that investing in tech, investing in the right tools to allow you to do more mission is fundamentally important and critical to running a great nonprofit.
Well, and I think there's also a camp too in terms of technology where people think that tech doesn't have a human side. Like you say, so this is what you're sort of talking about, this humanization. Like we always look at the tech as this sort of, I guess for lack of a better cliche, ones and zeros. Mm-hmm. But this concept of, where even artificial intelligence is going, this concept of that there's a human side to mm-hmm. tech. And I think where we're trying to bridge the gap, and you can push back on this or debate me on this, but I think where the sector is going is I think they're going to lead that forefront. Because if they can't wrap their brain around the fact that you can still have a human or a peer-to-peer kind of front, and that could drive the technology and then put that loop together, it's almost as if we can't, it's sort of this idea of like the fluffy bunny you always talk about, right?
Yes, I love fluffy bunnies. Oh, and it's, so for the listeners, fluffy bunny is my phrase for people who really just want the warm fuzzies. Right.
And it's not derogatory because
no,
fluffy bunnies no kung fu.
It's very important.
Yeah.
So my position is people run from technology because it's hard, it's difficult, it's different. What we do here at Furniture Bank is we use technology that is easy and accessible. There is lots of technology. My rule of thumb is if my mom would understand it, it's good enough for this organization. Moms love us. And to a point, they'll put up with this. But the moment it's too complicated, our mothers will tell us off. Right. And that's my mom rule. And would that be, documents we write or tools we implement or processes we apply the mom rule. Technology will get us a long way, but it's going to require empathic people who want to use those tools to actually have a bigger impact. So it's sort of down the middle.
Right. It's sort of like it's trying to take the best of both worlds and trying to, it's almost...
Technology becomes the foundation. For us,
right.
The work we're doing right now becomes the bedrock from which we as an organization, we get lots of phone calls from other communities. How can you help us run our furniture bank in my community? And one of the things they're coming for is the dispatching, the call center, the point of sale, I call
right.
it the fiddly bits of running a furniture bank. Most people just want to do the fun thing, which is serve clients, see the impact.
Right.
We have 46 employees. Those 46 employees, for the most part, do the not so fun parts. And we let volunteers work with the clients, and build homes again and again. And that's where our volunteer program, those volunteers get the benefit.
So do you ever see yourself, and this is just a shot in the dark, this is just my design brain thinking, do you ever see yourselves as proprietary software that you develop out of the Furniture Bank as your next social enterprise?
Not software, it'll be a platform as a service. So we run a Salesforce instance. We're designing it so that Community X can plug in and run their Furniture Bank their way within the confines of the sandbox. That is the way we run a Furniture Bank.
So just describe a little bit for, maybe some of our students don't understand sort of this idea of SaaS.
Sure.
or platform as a service. What is that?
Sure. So platform as a service is the idea being is if you're in a small community, let's use Barrie. If there was a small group of people in Barrie, actually we had a call just last week. A small community group who said we'd love to get a Furniture Bank up off the ground. Could you help?
Right.
Now, the act of most Furniture Banks start in a church. Church says to congregation, family X needs furnishings. Everybody I've got a dresser, I've got a bed. It's when you get large organizations, it gets complicated. The number of items that need to be coordinated just in this building adds complexity, and that's where most organizations get trapped. They can't scale because it becomes too complex. So the idea behind our platform is Community A can log in, they can add all the community agencies they work with, they can arrive and book a family. Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith needs an appointment. They take an iPad. We all know how to use iPads. They print out stickers and they select furniture. And then this organization could handle the dispatching. Go here, pick up this, go here, deliver that. We can handle the phone calls. We can do the bookings. Things that are more complicated, which are part and parcel of a large Furniture Bank. We can do that on behalf of the community and let the community volunteers work directly with the clients in need. I think there's about 15 or so Furniture Banks across Canada. All of them are very tiny, and it's usually because they run against a scaling issue that to go any bigger, they need a bigger building, they need more trucks, they need more logistics, and it's just not core to why they started the work that they're doing. We as an organization got pulled into it because of crisis, and now we're 10 trucks and 46 employees and a waiting list that would triple that size just here in the Toronto area. So we're kind of invested in this platform, and we want to be able to provide that platform for other communities.
That's great. So it's not like you're becoming like a.
I'm not trying to become Microsoft.
No, but it's interesting how when you look at those, that scaling, right? Like people think there's a physical scaling, but really what you're doing is you're using the technology to amplify what's already going on in the communities.
So we're looking at different models. There may be a situation where the right combination of things makes sense for this organization to invest in that community with our own buildings, our own trucks, our own staff. But it could be the other end, which is I'm a community in Newfoundland. I already have something, but I don't want to run the dispatching and the phones.
Right.
And could you do that for us? And we're now in a position to say yes.
That's fantastic. So you're almost got like your own distribution center. So you could be like a hub.
An information hub, a coordinator, and everywhere in between. So.
Right. So, and it's funny enough because, that's a business model thinking,
it is.
right?
It
because, business is adverse to overhead.
Yes.
Right? And so it's interesting, we had this conversation with Ellen at Sojo about this idea that there's a lot of, it's really the same thing. We're just putting different content into what we're working with. So the business framework's there, but it's like you said before, it's like, what do you use it for?
Yep.
And I think once people sort of wrap their brain around that it's really just a tool, right?
Yes, and it's probably the most empowering tool.
Yeah.
There's if you're a social enterprise that you're coming up with and running, and you run it well, and this is for us, is we compete against Wayne & Hunter Got Junk and movers and downsizers and all these other businesses that are in the for-profit deliver. We have to provide the very best service because that's what the customer is paying for.
Right.
They bluntly don't care about our clients. We do as charity.
Right.
But the problem you're solving is I need to remove my things from my home, and wouldn't it be great if it went and those items went and did some good?
Right.
But at the end of it, we have to price competitively. We have to provide the same customer service and delight the customer just as much as any other for-profit. And that's the secret of a great social enterprise, because the mission is great, but your customers who are going to pay the bills, that'll only work once.
That's right.
It has to be the very best experience, and we're always constantly pushing better service, better experience, again and again and again, to the point where we now have One Her Got Junk partnering with us because we compete on an equal footing, and they would love to partner with a social mission.
Right. So
And that's where the partnership piece that which is so important to us, is that we're not in the junk space, we're in the dignified furniture space.
right.
So find a way that both of us can partner and both of us can benefit. It's quite fundamental for a successful social enterprise.
So you guys really have a clear definition between your customers and your beneficiaries.
Absolutely.
Right. And
You have to.
Yeah.
If you muddy them, your business is at risk.
Right, right. You talked a little bit about, just sort of quickly, you talked a lot about, in our conversations too, Steve Blank and this idea
Yes.
of
Lean startup, value
Yeah.
proposition, yes.
Talk to me a little bit about why you love Steve Blank too so much.
So, well, Steve Blank is like, he's the godfather. If you go and look at every Facebook, Dropbox, Evernote, every company or app, if you have a smartphone, Steve Blank had touched it. And the whole idea is, my background in startups, I look at a lot of the things that a startup is trying to do. They want to change the world just as much as a nonprofit does. They're resource constrained just like a nonprofit is. They have a mission, nonprofit has a mission. The difference being is in a startup, they're about shareholder value. They're about making a whole lot of money while changing the world. And about a nonprofit is about changing the world, period. So, a lot of the tools and tricks and techniques that have, Silicon Valley is experts in, we can borrow from liberally. The business model canvas that Sojo uses has been adapted to reflect our social activities. But there's lots of great tools, lots of great thinking that allow you to get in and out of a particular business issue quickly. Because time is the issue. Every hour you waste, you're spending money that could go elsewhere. So, we've created a culture of, be efficient and effective, but also be inquisitive. How do we fail faster so that we can innovate? We're looking at pilots with realtors, pilots with furniture manufacturers, all the people that touch this space. How do we find a solution that helps both parties? And it's really important. The closer you can get to your social enterprise solving both a customer issue and a beneficiary need are the ones that are going to resonate with your customers.
Great. So just really quickly, any last advice? So you're starting a furniture bank, or you're starting up. Tell us from a business perspective, what should you, from your perspective, just some advice.
First advice is you're going to be confronted with a lot of stereotypes. Challenge yourself, challenge the stereotypes. If you haven't seen Dan Pallotta's, well, if you're in the SENP course, when you do SENP 1002, you're going to have to watch Dan Pallotta.
Isn't that's the same semester?
It is the same semester. So you are stuck watching Dan Pallotta. And SENP 1002 is really a bit of Dan, which is thinking differently about nonprofits and running them and running social enterprise. Push and challenge your mindset to think differently and behave differently. There isn't a right answer. There's a lot of, if you're an accountant, there is black and white. There are right answers. There's nothing in the space that is black and white. Mm. You must form an opinion on what is important to you and be prepared to defend it. You are going to have to bring board members around who may not agree with you. So you're going to have to become experts in storytelling and experts on why business within the nonprofit is the right way forward. Because the last time I checked, there's not more philanthropic money coming into this sector, there's less. Mm-hmm. And the funders are concentrating, not starting to help a new nonprofit. So it's really social enterprise, for me, personal opinion, is really the way for organizations to sustain themselves.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And both being, sort of corporate converts now.
Yes. Last point. Little factoid. Here at Furniture Bank, my director team, half of them have come from the corporate side. and are now have drunk the Kool-Aid and come to this motley crew of pirates, which is business mindsets in a nonprofit. But the recruiter who I used, she has pivoted her entire practice to focus on business people coming into the nonprofit space, because 30% of all executive director and CEOs in nonprofits in Canada are reaching retirement age in the next 5 years, which means 1/3 of all nonprofits are going to lose their senior leaders in the next 5 years. And there is no bench of up and coming leaders in the nonprofit sector. So there's going to be a lot more business minded thinking coming into this sector, whether it be created through this SENP program or the business people coming in and changing what is nonprofit leadership in the next 5 years.
And why do you think there's sort of that migration? Because I don't know, from my perspective, I just got to a point in my life where I couldn't put another product on the shelf.
Oh, same thing.
You know, I was done.
And that's that same, I left because I was tired of making not so nice people rich.
Mm-hmm.
There was no benefit to society. It was just profiting people. Why couldn't I apply my talent and my skills to make this world a little better? You're like that, and my marketing director's like that, and there's a lot of my friends who, you know, I went to my 20th Ivy MBA reunion thinking, what have I got? I just run a charity.
They were probably all jealous.
And I have people who own banks, who are Navy captains, who are master investment bankers, and all the top. And yet all of them spent more time with me understanding what's it like to run a business where you change lives every day.
Yeah.
And it is the best thing I've ever done and will ever do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I don't know about you, but when I became a parent, it was more that question of what, you know, like,
yes.
what do I want to tell my son
Yep.
what I do for a living,
Yep.
right? Do
No.
I design product or I actually make people's lives better?
Yes. I have a similar story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Well, that's cool. Well, that's awesome, Dan.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you. And you guys are all going to have Dan in the sister course.
Yes.
So
Sweet.
take notes.
Yes.
This is behind the scenes. Okay. Thanks, Dan.
No problem.